Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Bill, it's our playoff brackets. We're going to do this every Tuesday. Last week we did it on Tuesday afternoon because the AP poll was new and it was like, hey, Ohio State's, was that last week, 2 weeks ago? Like, hey, Ohio State's number one. Let's talk about it now. But what we, I think, are doing, Bill, is later in the season, we're going to get to the point where the playoff committee is putting out its rankings on Tuesday nights, and we probably will react to that, to the committee rankings, and say, well, here's what we would do. So we're probably going to start dropping this in the Tuesday evening slot on YouTube and in the podcast feeds with that in mind. Yes?
Yeah, but I don't think we'll that show like moves around, right? Sometimes it's at 7:30. There's one weekend or 1 week where it's at like 9:45 between basketball games. So
yeah,
I think once they start, we'll go after, but until they start, we'll probably go before 7 so people can get to this earlier.
Yeah. We don't have to pretend that we're building our content around when a Louisville Southern Miss basketball game is being played on ESPN2. And then they decide, I don't know, let's unveil like the thing that everybody cares about for the second most popular sport in America. So we also, we're going to go. So we have our playoff picks from the idea each week, Bill, is that we're going to do it here and say, like, this is like sort of a bet your house. You're trying to be right at the end of the year. This is not how we would rank teams if we were AP voters right now. We both have been AP voters in the past. I do think there's a little bit of some controversial AP poll stuff this week. Somebody had a goofy ballot.
A couple people had goofy ballots, actually. They were
really
goofy ballot. Yeah.
And I respect goofy ballots. So groupthink, I think, is bad. And the minute that somebody exits groupthink, people go crazy. They get mad at them. But also within the groupthink, when the groupthink is wrong, people get mad and go crazy. So I will say, I have a particular show in mind when I say this. I'm not going to say it because there's no reason to. I think just at this point, and I'm not going to pretend I haven't been guilty of this in the past, building gigantic content blocks around, I can't believe the AP poll did this, is such low-hanging fruit. It is such low-hanging fruit that, like, give your opinions about who you think the best teams are, but the level of outrage, we know the deal. I like polls. I think they're important. They provide historical context. If you believe that the AP poll is the barometer and the end-all be-all of like who's actually the best team right now, we have a long way to go. The committee's going to do its thing, and I just think there are just people who just build their whole empire around it, and I'm just like, I guess that's fine. But yeah, no duh. The AP poll's jacked up. Ugh, what a brilliant take.
Yeah, it's I don't give it much thought. I mean, clearly when things are so out of whack, maybe it's worth pointing out, because I think you make a good point about not subscribing to groupthink when you do it. But even when you deviate from groupthink, you still need to live in the land of logic. And people struggle with that. And also sometimes people make mistakes. We were talking earlier, like one time when I was voting, I forgot to rank Central Florida. And it wasn't because I didn't think they should be ranked. It was just because I was doing the poll half asleep in a car, probably. I forgot to rank Central Florida. And sometimes that happens. But yeah, I don't want to dedicate more time than it needs. But it was a little wonky this week for sure.
The two biggest problems with the AP polls, ballots are due by noon on Sunday, and that's too fast for anybody to have time to truly evaluate all the teams. The AP is in complete control of that, and they are living in an ancient world where you had to get the polls done so you could get it to the agate page to get it ready for Monday's paper, and it's now everybody finds out instantaneously. So the idea that we have to find out who's ranked in college football before the NFL games start on Sunday is insane. And the AP should move it till noon on Monday, and it's their fault. They are responsible for their poll not being as good as it could be, because that's the number one problem. And the number two problem is there's a whole bunch of beat writers who are paid to cover their own teams and then are trying to evaluate the whole country, and it's not where their focus is. And they need more nationally focused writers and reporters and broadcasters in the AP poll. But, I mean, for me to come on here and like just put on a white t-shirt and be like, I'm going to build a content empire around how dare this poll. It's like, I teach his own. Can we talk about Oregon? if I was voting in the AP poll, I probably would have Oregon. What are they? They're 4th, and they did get a first place vote. I probably would have Oregon 3rd or 4th. I would have them ahead of Penn State for sure. The idea Penn State is hanging on at number 2 is strange to me. The AP poll is Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Oregon, Miami. Oregon destroyed Oklahoma State. Miami's win over Notre Dame, LSU's win over Clemson, Ohio State's win over Texas are still better than any Oregon win. So my poll would probably be Ohio State 1, LSU 2, Miami 3, Oregon 4. What do you think of Oregon so far?
They look really good. They look. I thought we might have a situation similar to last year where Oregon was a little slow out of the gate, and they're not. They haven't been at all. They look really sharp on offense. I don't know ultimately like what this defensive ceiling is, and they haven't really played a team that will tell us that, and probably won't until they play Penn State in a couple of weeks. But if I was anticipating them having some sort of ramp up to the point where even I've sort of considered their trip to Penn State at the end of September almost a scheduled loss because I didn't think they'd quite be ready for it at that point. I have changed my mind pretty dramatically on that particular game, and I think that Oregon right now looks like it's the second best team in the Big Ten behind Ohio State, and Ohio State and Oregon kind of look like the 2 teams to beat in the Big Ten. And I say that fully respecting what Penn State is and what they could do this year. I just think Oregon's playing way better than them right now.
Penn State, meanwhile, seems to be getting in its own way that James Franklin is talking about. Drew Aller was in his own head last week, and then maybe the running backs were in their own head. And you and I were sort of talking about this, the idea that Penn State, which made the semifinals last year, that is no small feat. They made the Big Ten championship game and the national semifinals. That is a great year by any standard. But in terms of like the ultimate goal and the ultimate peak, Penn State has not been there in a long time. And they're almost like preemptively getting out of whack for a thing that they haven't done and may not do. It's a little odd for them to be in their own heads this early, Bill.
Yeah, which I think people were wondering about, right, coming into the year. How does a team, and James Franklin said, these are always our expectations. I think anybody who's a little more realistic about it would say, like, not quite. Like, no one has really come into the season thinking Penn State can win a national championship or might even be the favorite to win a national championship. So how does that team handle that? And I don't even know if they're handling it poorly. That might be taking it too far. Like sometimes, again, teams just sort of start slow and find their footing by the beginning of October, and maybe that'll be Penn State. But it is odd that they do seem to be fighting against something. And I just like you I don't know when it was, months ago, I think, sort of theorized about what an angry Oregon team might look like. I thought Penn State might come out and play angry because of how last season ended. And they don't seem to be doing that. And I don't think it's a case of a team just sort of deliberately playing slow and not putting their foot on the gas. Like I think they're trying to, and they're not quite getting there just yet. But they have one more game this week, I think, against Villanova before they get ready to play Oregon. So we'll see what they look like in this game against an overmatched team.
Apparently Villanova has a 33-year-old kicker.
Really?
Yeah. I just thought maybe you would know something about that, since Villanova is in Philadelphia and you're from Philadelphia.
Just like the Pennsylvania State University, Villanova University is not in Philadelphia.
Illinois last week, one of the best charts, and if you guys are still on the old Twitter machine there, Parker Fleming, it's Stats O War.
Different Parker Fleming. It's remember the audience.
It remains one of the most remarkable things. It's not like Parker Fleming is that common of a name, but there was an Ohio State special teams coach and a well-known college football data analyst who shared a name. And while Ohio State fans were yelling at Parker Fleming on social media for 2 years, the college football data analyst's life was getting blown up because everybody was like, "What's wrong with you? I can't believe you have a job." And he's like, "I just crunch numbers. Don't yell at me." I've had that conversation with him. He's a great follow, Stats O War. And one of my favorite things each week is he compares the net success rates from every game. And he titles the graphic, "Did we really get beat that bad?" And it tells you, and again, we like to, there's two different things you can look at here. Success rate, net success rate, that's like how you do play to play. How many of your plays were successful, right? Judged by how many yards do you have to get on first down, second down, third down in different situations to have a play judged to be successful. And then the Brian Fremeau index that we like, which is drive to drive. How successful are you? So it's a way to tell you something besides the scoreboard. And you're always on the lookout for the teams who lost the success rate, but won the game. And so in any of the FBS games that were in his chart this week, for the worst one was Boston College had a much better success rate than Michigan State and lost that game in overtime, 42-40. But the fourth worst example of like, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 11 games where the team with the worst success rate won the game. Fourth among that was Duke over Illinois. And you and I were watching Duke, Illinois, and it felt like Duke was absolutely outplaying Illinois in the first half, but they were making horrendous mistakes and giving the ball back to Illinois. And then Illinois did play better in the second half. Luke Altmaier made some throws, but Duke still made some egregious mistakes. I still, spoiler alert, have Illinois in my playoff rankings. What did you think of Illinois?
Like I wasn't... You have to give them credit for the win, right? But it wasn't, I've been a little like sort of circumspect on Illinois, and it wasn't the kind of performance that like sort of pointed me back in the direction of, I think Illinois is definitely a playoff team. I think they're good. Like I think Luke Altmaier is maybe significantly better than people want to give him credit for. He just does not get talked about a lot among like the nation's best quarterbacks, or even in like that second tier of best quarterbacks. And I think he probably should be in that tier. You know, an Illinois' defensive line I thought was pretty impressive in that game. So the things that I assumed were strengths for Illinois kind of looked like it, and the areas where I wondered about Illinois kind of looked like it too. So like all the credit in the world for winning the game, but I wasn't particularly impressed with either team, I guess. And this is someone who was like was high on Duke coming into the year. Like I thought they were pretty disappointing.
Yeah. Illinois' offensive line, which returned every one of its starters, like couldn't block Duke.
Not very good. Yeah.
And it was just like, man, no offense to Duke, but like, you can't block Duke. Like, good luck against some of these Big Ten defenses you're going to face. So I did think Illinois played much better in the second half. And you know who I think is pretty good? Brett Bielema is pretty good. Duke was outplaying Illinois in the first half, and Brett Bielema was just trying to slow the game down and get things under control by doing goofy substitution stuff, because he coaches to the whistle, right?
Yeah,
in a
good way to put
way
it. Yeah.
That if it was somebody else, it would annoy you, but if it's Illinois, he was just like pulling out every little trick to try to just like throw Duke off. And it's like, well, I don't like, we're not really stopping them. So,
yeah, you can
Illinois,
like weaponize managing a game, and he's pretty good at it.
He's pretty good at it. And that could be the difference between Illinois making the playoff or not. You know, like, I'm not sure you can weaponize the game and beat Ohio State. I'm not sure you can weaponize the game and beat Oregon, but like, you can weaponize the game, and that's going to pull out a game in this crowded middle pack of the Big Ten. So I thought that is something to, and again, the guy won 3 straight Big Ten championships. Like, just like, remember that Brett Bielema has been here before. By the way, everybody knows this. You certainly know this. Darian Mensah, the transfer from Tulane to Duke, the quarterback, that was a whole big thing as that game was being covered last week. Like, he's getting a ton of NIL money. Do you know who Duke plays this week?
Tulane.
They do. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
I didn't really like that. It's a direct NIL battle. Like that's, and then Tulane has Jake Retzloff, and like they got their own quarterback stuff. So just interesting stuff. Not that necessarily our audience cares that much.
It matters for the G5 race though, right? Like Tulane was a team people like there, and like they're going to play 2 quarterbacks this week against Duke, right? Because they don't know who their best quarterback is.
They think it might not be Jake Retzloff. Is it Brendan Sullivan's the other quarterback? Or is it another different guy?
I think there's some uncertainty as to who their best quarterback is, yeah.
But it's between Sullivan and Retzloff?
I believe so, yeah.
It's not, because they had like 4 quarterbacks they brought in. They brought in every transfer quarterback in the world. So Brendan Sullivan, formerly of Northwestern and Iowa. We also are interested in a thing about what I was saying we could call the race for the 4th playoff spot in the Big Ten, that we had said this offseason. We thought Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State certainly were in positions of the Big Ten of should make the playoff. We thought 8 other teams qualified for the level of could make the playoff. So I don't want to bury this, but we can have, for this week at least, Bill, we can have this conversation here. Just as a reminder to people, those 8 Big Ten teams that we thought were, that second tier. Illinois, Washington, Minnesota, Nebraska, USC, Indiana, Michigan, and Iowa. Do you think all 8 of them steadfastly remain in pretty much equal consideration of like, yeah, that could be the 4th playoff team in the Big Ten? Or have any of them 2 weeks in fallen into what we would call the out category? I have my little list of the 8. These are still in, these are out. Who would be out for you?
I think just Iowa from that group.
I have 2 teams that are out. I have Michigan out also.
Okay. Talk about it.
Maybe just because he's a kid. Bryce Underwood's just a kid. And I've seen some headlines or some discussion of like, what's wrong with Michigan or what are they? And it's like, I don't know that there's anything wrong with Michigan other than they went to Oklahoma and Oklahoma's quarterback is a veteran who transferred from Washington State, and Michigan's quarterback was a true freshman who made some good throws, but definitely missed some throws. And it was maybe just a reminder. Maybe none of us should have needed the reminder of, okay, I do think, is that quarterback play at Michigan significantly above where it was a year ago? The quarterback play at Michigan. Yes, I believe that. Is it good enough to make the playoff? So when I say in and out, it's like, who do I really think could still be a playoff team? Could be the 4th Big Ten playoff team. And I would say Michigan out is because I just don't know. I think Bryce Underwood's going to be good. I think Bryce Underwood is good. I don't think he's consistently good. And so what does Michigan have to do at this point to make the playoff? I mean, they're 1-1. Do they have to go 9-1 the rest of the year? They certainly have to go 8-2. And do I think that's going to happen with a true freshman quarterback? I would say no.
Yeah, I think it might be 9-1. Just I don't have their schedule in front of me. But even like they got to go play at Nebraska in 2 weeks, right? Or is it
huge?
Yes. Yeah. So like that always kind of felt like a huge game, but it was a game where you felt reasonably good about Michigan going and doing it even without Sharon Moore. You feel a little less confident than that now, right? Which is like, and it's like nothing. I think Bryce Underwood's going to be very good. It's like he's a true freshman making his second career start on the road against Oklahoma. That looks like an improved team. So I'm not like terribly surprised that he looked that way, but it was a good reminder, I think, for anyone who was kind of just assuming that Michigan was going to bounce right back into playoff contention, that it's hard when you have a freshman quarterback.
Could Michigan go 8-4 and be ascending by the end of the year? Absolutely. That's not going to get you in the playoff. So this is just a playoff discussion. So,
I'm not out on them though.
You're not out because you think he still isn't running at all. And Sharon Moore was asked about it this week and just said sort of like, if you're going to run your quarterback, you better have 2 quarterbacks. And they also said, I think Mikey Keene's back in practice and doing some stuff. But I mean, it feels like if a young quarterback has that ability, it can be a little bit of a get out of jail free card at times. So maybe they'll start using that.
It was a huge deal for Mateer in Oklahoma. Like they don't.
It was.
Not like Oklahoma's offense looked great. It was a lot of Mateer running around doing crazy stuff.
He had no runs in week 1, and Bryce Underwood had 2 runs last week, 1 scramble. So they're clearly telling him something, when he does have that ability. He also has the ability to rip it, but sometimes he rips it and he's right on the money. And sometimes I thought in week 1, he was mostly on the money. And then in week 2 against a better defense, he missed some throws. But you think Michigan could still get to the point with its defense, with its run game, with a little bit of explosiveness at receiver. And by the way, Marlon Klein, their number 1 tight end, was out against Oklahoma. And this is such a tight end centric offense. You could feel that really hurting them, that they can still patch it together. Maybe Bryce Underwood's not consistent, but he makes enough good plays per game, and the defense holds people down, and Michigan tries to win a bunch of 17-14 games where Bryce Underwood makes 3 or 4 awesome plays, and that's enough. So you think that's out there enough for you to not be out on Michigan?
I think it's out there, but I do think it will require Sharon Moore and Chip Lindsey, the OC, to like the training wheels are off now. You can't training wheels your way to trying to get a playoff bid. You just you let Bryce Underwood do what he can do, and maybe you lose a couple games because he's a freshman and he makes mistakes. But I don't think you can protect him on your way to winning 8 or 9 more games and trying to get into the playoff. So we'll see now once they got on the other side of this game if they're actually willing to do that. Because I think Justice Haynes looks really good at running back. Klein, when he gets back, is a good tight end. I'm still a little iffy on what they have at receiver. I think they're improved, but are there any actual game breakers there? I'm not entirely sure, but you got to find out. Like, you can't, I don't know that they're built to try to win, the same way that Jim Harbaugh was winning sometimes, where it felt like JJ McCarthy was like kind of along for the ride at times until like later in his career when he did, like, he played well, made plays and made big games. But like the first year of JJ McCarthy, when it was like, we're going to play quorum, right?
Yep.
I don't think they're quite built that way. So they might as well see if their young quarterback can't find another gear and see what that looks like. And if you lose, if you lose 4 games, you lose 4 games. No one wants to hear that, but at least it would be in service of something.
By the Brian Fremeau index, Michigan and Iowa are still right there. Michigan's number 17 in the country overall by that rating. Iowa's number 25. Among the 6 teams that we would both consider still in the race, start from the bottom up. Illinois is last of that group of 6 in the Fremeau index, which is interesting. But again, Duke outplayed them play to play. They also outplayed them drive to drive. So Illinois is 34, Washington 33, Minnesota 28, Nebraska 24, Indiana 15, and USC 9. Now, if I was ranking the teams that I like, who's my number 1 pick to be the 4th playoff team in the Big Ten, I would have Illinois, and I might have Washington second. So it's inverse order for me. But USC is showing enough offensively that you're on alert. They get Purdue this week. It's going to be a 3:30 game that people are going to be watching. But like USC, they got Notre Dame coming down the line. You gotta pay attention to them a little bit, at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have not watched any of USC, so I won't pretend like I have. But you take note of what they're doing on offense. They might have the 2 best receivers in the Big Ten who aren't Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Which is something. It's just like, especially in this league, like if you have that can be a pretty nice trump card, because not everyone has that. Like Denzel Boston's at Washington. There's a couple other good receivers, but the 2 guys at USC are pretty good. Yeah, they're interesting. I want to see what the defense looks like when they play a good team. Like they haven't played really anybody of note yet. Was it like Missouri State and Georgia Southern is who they played, right?
Yeah. Jaden Maeva, their quarterback, threw for 295 in the opener, 412 last week. They're at Purdue this week. Then they have Michigan State's a little mad about this, but what are you going to do? It's an 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 West Coast start in 2 weeks on September 20th at USC. That's Michigan State at USC. And Aiden Childs at Michigan State showed you a little something. So that's not a walkover, but it's still not quite the point you're talking about. Really show me. Then they hit a 4-game stretch where we're going to find out about USC. September 27th at Illinois. Then they have an off week. Then home against Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska after another bye. So that 4-game stretch in the middle of the year, we'll find out.
Can we talk about, by the way, that like there's too much going on that weekend, right? Is that the same weekend as
which weekend?
That's the same week, the weekend, the 27th, when USC
Illinois,
plays
USC.
Illinois. That's also Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State, Washington, and isn't like Georgia, Alabama or something that day?
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
Too many bangers. Too many bangers. TMB. Yeah. But like, it's okay. You'll take it, right?
I'll take it. Yeah. I just gotta. It's tough to prioritize. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like we got to be on here. Well, let's run through them. Okay. So that week, you got to go ahead. Run through it.
Ohio State's at Washington. LSU is at Ole Miss. USC is at Illinois. Tennessee, Mississippi State might even be interesting. Auburn at A&M. Indiana at Iowa. That could be interesting. That might be it. Cincinnati, Kansas. I know we're getting into the weeds here with stuff that interests us, maybe not the sport at large, but yeah, that's what else we got? Notre Dame's at Arkansas. Oregon, Penn State. Alabama, Georgia. BYU's at Colorado. Yeah. Not a bad weekend.
The bottom line, 7:30 that night on September 27th at the same time. Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia at the same time. But nobody will care about Alabama because they'll be 1-3 by then. Anyway, let's do our playoff picks. I have what we had the first 2 weeks of the year. What is your 1 through 12? What are your Bet Your House playoff bracket as it stands right now?
Yeah, I shook mine up a little bit. I still have Ohio State 1. The thing I don't think people take into account enough when they're like, do whatever, they're doing a poll, they're doing stuff like this, is like, yes, you give team credit, like a team like LSU, right, who I had number 2 last year. You give them credit for a really good win at Clemson. But then Clemson goes and almost loses to Troy, and I think you have to reevaluate the LSU win, right, a little bit. Not that you discredit it entirely, but so like I don't have LSU.
You're gathering information, Bill.
Yeah,
Landis.
I don't have LSU number 2 anymore. I have Miami number 2. So Ohio State 1, Miami 2. I have Oregon 3. Okay. And I have Texas 4.
Okay. Congrats to the SEC for sneaking into that bye.
That's right. 5 Penn State, 6 LSU, 7 Utah.
Okay.
8 Oklahoma.
Okay.
9, and I don't think I changed the bottom. 9 Florida State, 10 Notre Dame, 11 Iowa State, 12 South Florida.
All right, Bill. So that 12-team bracket of yours, there's only one actual new team from what you had last week, and that is Oklahoma replacing. And you got dog. Here we go.
Sorry, I should have given you a heads up.
Dog mentality. You got Georgia out, man. Georgia out.
Yeah, there's some stuff going on. Like Georgia's got some offensive line stuff they're figuring out, some injuries, I think, and Kirby Smart does not seem particularly fond of the way that Gunnar Stockton has been playing. I think their game against Austin Peay had a weather delay, so the margin wasn't maybe what it would have been otherwise. But I mostly didn't want to have more than 3 SEC teams in my playoff field at the moment because I still have 2 from the ACC and 2 from the Big 12. So I put Oklahoma in there with the win over Michigan. I did go back and forth on it a little bit, if I'm being honest, but we'll find out more about Georgia this week. They play Tennessee.
Not even joking, not even being an SEC troll. It is hard to feel good about 3 SEC teams. We're not even talking about 4. We're talking about 3.
Yeah.
And you get past Texas and LSU and you start going I don't know, man, because I do
feel that great about Texas and LSU, if I'm being honest.
No, well, that's part of it. You said you moved LSU down because the Clemson win doesn't look as good. They were not great against Louisiana Tech.
Right.
So there's a lot of midness. It's not even, it's just fact. It's just fact. What did they were 23-7 over Louisiana Tech. Nussmeier was very average.
Yeah, they had some injuries there too, I think. Offensive line injury, something on defense, I think. But yeah, they're a little banged up. So I don't, and we're already through Wintzgate with Arch. So is he hurt? Is he not hurt? Is he not hurt? What do Texas beat reporters look like when they're using the bathroom? It's insane. The SEC's on fire. I don't even have to get out a sword. I don't have to put on a bald cap. You just have to state facts, Bill. Yes.
I think there are at least 2.5 teams in the Big Ten that you feel better than compared to any SEC team. I think it's Ohio State, no doubt about it, and Oregon, no doubt about it, and probably Penn State. If we're having a conversation, who do you feel better about, Penn State or LSU, Penn State or Texas? Connor O'Gara would come on here and tell you it's LSU, but they're in the mix, right? But I think Ohio State and Oregon are, in terms of just confidence based on what they've put on the field so far, I think Ohio State and Oregon are far above anybody in the SEC. Yeah,
and I would say Miami is too. If you want to go to a team from the ACC, I think those 3 teams are, I think, clearly the 3 that have been most impressive. And it's only been 2 weeks. I understand that. By the way, we were talking about Arch being hurt on our pregame show before anybody else was talking about it. I just want to point that out. Right, join us on the Substack and talk to us pregame live.
You were early on Wintzgate, so let's give Landis the props. All right, my top 12: Ohio State 1, Texas 2, Miami 3, Oregon 4. So last week I had Penn State in the 4 spot. Now I have Oregon in the 4 spot. Georgia 5. Just because I reluctantly was okay, LSU after the Clemson win. But now if there's an opening on LSU, I'm going to start dropping them. Georgia 5, Notre Dame 6, Penn State 7, Utah 8, LSU 9, Illinois 10, Georgia Tech 11, and South Florida 12. So you said you have. So the other thing is, neither of us have Clemson in. In our preseason rankings, we both had Clemson winning the ACC. I had Clemson as a 3 seed. You had them as the 4 seed. They're losing to Troy last week. Cade Klubnik does not look right. And I will tell you, man, banger this week. It's practically a play-in game. Clemson at Georgia Tech. Clemson's beaten Georgia Tech 9 straight times. Clemson's a 3.5-point favorite on the road. I slid Georgia Tech in there because I had Georgia Tech in the preseason, but now that feels like it could be over before it started for Clemson if they lose this week, and they absolutely could lose this week the way they've been playing.
Yeah, I think they could for sure. I want to look where that game is. It is at Bobby Dodd. I was worried they were going to play that at Mercedes-Benz, so it's an on-campus home game for Georgia Tech. Yeah, I think Georgia Tech's going to win that game.
Yeah, I think I and again, open for oh wait, Clemson got their stuff together defensively. They do have a dominant defensive line, and Cade Klubnik, remember that he was one of the 3 Heisman favorites, and they get that back. That is not who they've been at all so far. Not who they've been at all. And then we will also note, and this is at our pick show. We'll drop that to you every Friday. We have a banger between 2 playoff teams this weekend. South Florida at Miami. And if South Florida beats Miami, South Florida is going to be the 1 seed at the end of the year. I don't know. I mean, what are we doing here? If they beat Boise State, Florida, and Miami to start the year, they better be ranked. Next week, the AP poll better be, get my white t-shirt on. The AP poll better be Ohio State and South Florida as the top 2 teams if South Florida starts 3-0 with wins over those 3 teams.
Yeah, they don't. I don't even know if it matters. I guess you want to keep it close, right? If you're South Florida and you lose, but to have those 2 wins in your pocket, and assuming obviously you'd have to win the American to get to the playoff. I don't know, that. This game almost doesn't matter, I guess. But
I think you're right.
But it would be a heck of a thing if they started 3-0 with 2 wins over power Florida programs.
Because it's just about positioning against the other G5 conference champs. And you still think that Boise State's probably going to win the Mountain West, and they beat Boise head-to-head. So, they've kind of vanquished the Mountain West. Mm-hmm. And then who else is going to have a win like they have over Florida already? A top 20, it's viewed now. And even if Florida goes on to go 5-7 and stink, that's still a power 4 win on the road in a tough place to play against a team that has at least a couple good players. It will still be viewed favorably. And nobody else has a win like that right now. I mean, although... I guess you can get back to us if the Ohio Bobcats are super competitive with the win over West Virginia. If Rich Rod gets it together and West Virginia goes 10-2 and Ohio beat West Virginia and they're competitive with Ohio State this week, and then they run roughshod through the MAC, I don't want to sell the Ohio Bobcats short.
No, I thought of that almost immediately when I said it, but I don't think, unless South Florida were to win the American, somehow losing 3 games along the way, they've already surpassed Boise. James Madison had an opportunity to get a nice win against the power conference opponent and lost to Louisville last week. So that was a missed opportunity maybe, but I guess they're probably still in the mix too. But South Florida is very much in a driver's seat, but you make a good point. Don't forget about the Bobcats.
Yeah. So anyway, just a reminder that, Clemson, Bama, Georgia. I was out on Bama. To my credit, I've been out on Bama from the start. But for instance, so I'm not calling you out, Landis. I'm not here to say you were
Call me
wrong.
out. I was wrong.
Your preseason bracket, Clemson 4, Bama 5, Georgia 6. And you currently have none of them in your bracket now.
That's right.
And just think about that. Think about Southern football. Southern football in this century, the 3 defining programs are Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia. And if none of, and then LSU once every 7 years when they're not going 8-5, they occasionally win the national title. Think about if none of them make the playoff. Oh my God! If they get a Bama hat, if they get a Clemson hat, if they get a third sword,
Bama bounce back.
Bama bounce back.
They look good against UL Monroe, didn't they?
Ty Simpson's got it figured out. I actually was watching Ty Simpson. It's not horrendous. He's just scooting all over the place. Just listen. Just end it, Luke. Just end it. Just let the Badgers go down and just end this. Wouldn't it be glorious? Wisconsin at Alabama in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. Just put them out of their misery.
That'd be great. I don't know. We'll pick it later in the week. I got to figure out what's going on at quarterback for Wisconsin. Right?
Yeah. So, and a lot of other places too. All right. So I think clearly again, if I think that regardless of what our brackets say, I think we would agree the 3 teams in the country that we would feel the best about right now are, you say who? Which 3?
Ohio State, Miami, and Oregon.
I agree. So if we'd give a nod to LSU's win over Clemson, but if we were voting in the AP poll, I certainly would have those 3 in my top 4. No doubt about it.
Yes. Yep.
So anyway, okay. So we'll do this every Tuesday. I think it's context is good. We'll obviously offer some little north-south context within that and just constantly remind you that the SEC is mid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings, but results are results. And eyeballs are eyeballs.
Sorry to talk over you. Miami's next 3 games are South Florida, Florida, and Florida State.
Really?
Yeah. There's an off week in between Florida and Florida State, but yeah, that's a heck of a stretch.
Wow. Okay. No, we're talking all this week of like, hey, should Ohio State play a team from Ohio every year? And Miami's like, should we play a team from Florida every week? Could you do a full 12-game schedule of just playing teams from Florida?
They played Bethune-Cookman last week. That's a Florida team too. It's 4 straight Florida teams.
My God. You could slide UCF in there, right? Get like we can work this out. We can workshop this for Mario Cristobal. Okay. That'll be our plan Tuesday evenings to bring this conversation to you guys. Pick show, National, Northern, Big Ten, not just Ohio State pick show on Friday here on the YouTube channel and on your podcast feeds. Ohio State pick show on Thursday here on the YouTube channel and your podcast feeds. Big Wednesday show that's for our premium Substack subscribers. So if you want to be part of that, we go long. We have some really good stuff coming for some of those Wednesday shows. We would invite you to be a Substack subscriber. Bill and Doug OSU Substack. Google that. You'll find it. It's $10 a month. You get a lot of written content, but you also get some premium pods. And then I think, Bill, on occasion, I think we still will drop some longer pods here on YouTube and in the free podcast feed as well. Because still people out here like it when we go deep. Yes.
Yeah. Especially, I think, we probably won't do one until the Washington game, but like when we do big game breakdowns, those get pretty long and they'll probably be here on YouTube. So
yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good. All right. We appreciate you guys joining us. Try the Substack. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube in the podcast feed so you don't miss anything. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was the Bill and Doug Show.